It's the Fear It Goes show on the main channel on TVU with your host, Brandi Taylor. How you doing, Brandi?
I'm good. It's funny because usually I'm like, I'm awesome. I'm feeling really good. You and I have been talking about some interesting things that have kind of shifted that a little bit for me, but not really. I am really good, but there's interesting ideas at play today, and I really wanted to share them. So James and I were having a lovely discussion around self-worth. And I said, I really want to give you guys an exercise today, something that's going to help you start to even look at your own self-worth. But then we get into this conversation and it moves into some struggles that I've experienced myself over the last little while and what is now transpiring in regards to holding yourself at a certain level, a certain standard, and what that means. That means the boundaries that you automatically place because you hold yourself at this level, this standard. You hold this standard for yourself and all those around you. They can meet you there or not. That's up to them. But the way that they choose to meet you there or not will produce an outcome that means you're either going to be aligned and you're going to do great things together, or you will part. Because when we hold ourselves at a high standard, because we recognize our own value, what we bring to the table, how incredible we are to this world, it changes what you expect. And I don't like to say expectations because often expectations are placed in a state of lacking and trying to control something. This isn't about control. I just realized the window is open and it's raining. So you guys are getting rainstorm sounds. Sorry about that. It's going to be in the background.
Last week it was birds.
Yeah. Sometimes you just got to be around nature. And actually nature is really good for us and our soul and our energy. So that rainstorm, holy cow, is it ever coming down hard?
Do you
Wow.
want to close your window? Is that what you're saying?
No.
Okay.
No, but it's beautiful. It's like really coming down hard.
I love storms. I love storms.
Me too. There's something so wonderful and cleansing about a storm. And it is. It's kind of like that internal storm within ourselves too. When we are discovering our inner truths, when we are discovering our own value. And when I say value, what are you bringing to the table? So I look at things that create the best you. Who is that best you? So I am going to give an exercise. We're going to talk about it now. And then I'm going to kind of pull back into a story, because really everything that we experience in life is stories we often get stuck in because of the emotional attachments. And I'm going to explain that too. So please keep me on that. But I want you guys to sit down with a piece of paper and I want you to write things that I love about myself. And for some of you, you're going to find this really hard because you don't recognize the great parts of you. And in the beginning, when you're first learning about who you are, a lot of times you don't recognize these incredible things about yourself. So I highly recommend, once you've sat down and you've done this, to have someone you know really well, like a spouse, a partner, a kid, like one of your kids or your niece or your nephew, or someone that, or your best friend, someone who loves you, to write out a list with you or for you. And you'll see things in there that you won't recognize in yourself, but they do. Because when we're sitting here, it doesn't mean that that's what everyone sees. Often people see our greatness when we don't. They see our greatest selves when we are absolutely being our greatest selves without, the monkey mind, the primitive protective mind at play that's pulling you back and confusing you and telling you you're not worth it and giving you all the bull it likes to feed you in a day, right? That takes you out of your best self. But there are always those moments that our loved ones see where we are our absolute best. We are shining in the person that we truly are. So that's first part of the exercise. I want you to write this down, and it would be really nice if you could actually cut these out, because these are a really nice thing to do, and then stick in a jar, a box, or something, and go back and one, add to it as you get to know yourself, and two, go back in there and read these things. read them. These are like the best parts of you. And they should bring you such joy. And if they're not, it's because your protective mind has a different belief system overlapping your truth. Okay, so exercise 1. And this is a really beautiful gift you can give anybody. Like truly, truly can give anybody. This is a great thing to do with your kids too. Have them sit down and start recognizing their best characteristics, their best traits, their best parts of themselves. Exercise 1. Exercise 2 is this. Usually I do this kind of in a guided, I've done this in guided meditations before for groups and stuff, but I'm going to simplify it here. So what I want you to do is sit down and think about who you want to be. Who do you want to be? What does that person look like? What does that person look like, act like, feel like? How do they live? I want you to start determining characteristics of all the great things you admire in other people when you see them and you're like, oh, I love that about this person. Because usually when we're loving on someone else like that, it's something that we're looking for with ourselves or that is in us that we haven't necessarily recognized yet. So I'm thinking about someone specific. And when I first met them, I was like, you have a kindness to a level I have never known. Never, never, never known. And it is so blaringly beautiful. I am like enthralled with that kindness. It's just so awe-inspiring. As months have progressed and passed, I have come to recognize that that is something very powerful in me. It's something that I give the world. This kindness that is awe-inspiring. A leadership without judgment. These are those greatest moments when you recognize the correlation between what you admire in others and what you discover is within you. It's up to you what you want to bring. You can bring that monkey primitive mind, right? The protective mind. You can bring the ego with you all the time. The ego is all about identity, and learning roles will help you really recognize the identities that you take on. Oh my God, the identities you take on and how that demoralizes and devalues you. Each role in its destructive patterns. I cannot recommend doing role work ever. Can I recommend doing that enough? That realization is an awakening of its own. And it's one of the things we teach with the Align Now method because it's so pivotal. But, okay, so I said I was going to tell you a story. Oh, this is a toughie. I don't like to share these things often because at first I was like, I just need to let this go, right? I just need to let this go. So there is someone that owes me a lot of money and hid it from me for a long time. And it was just recently brought to light that this money was owing. Meanwhile, this person has also done everything they can to shame any moment that has not been my most powerful moment. So when I'm stuck in my own fear, and really whatever that manifests as, but when I'm stuck in my own fear and my own monkey mind, my protective primitive ego, when I'm in that, I'm not my shining self. I'm not my most powerful. I'm not gifting the world in the way that I want to, and that's another thing in that exercise, when you write down and you really sit down and think about creating who you want to be. Who is that? I know for me, that's someone who's guiding millions. I know for me, that's someone that is exuding love through every possible channel I can. Unconditional, overflowing, amazing, no judgment, no resentment, no anger, no fear, no nothing. Absolutely unconditional love. That's my deepest core value, is unconditional love. And if you don't know your core values, it's another exercise to do, because seriously, core values are awesome, because once you know them, you know who aligns with your core values. You know how to articulate those core values to others, whether it be professionally or personally. And you can do this in such kind ways. Setting boundaries is another thing that will automatically happen when you hold yourself to a higher standard. And that happens when you value yourself. So writing down the things that you value and the things that make you valuable will start to raise that confidence, will start to raise that awareness of really what you're bringing to the table. For a long time, I equated value to dollars, you know, to a house, to a car, to a stupid material stuff, until I really did a real dig, a deep down dig. And I've met billionaires. I've spent time on yachts. I've had lots of fun adventures in my life. And I can tell you that there are morally bankrupt people that are so miserable, but have lots of money. That carries very little value. In the big scheme of things, carries very little value. Those are the people that you want to hang out with? Not really. Because do they add to your life? Not really. They don't. They often are seeking, because they're so empty inside, they're seeking through others by really messed up means. And then you meet some of the most incredible people who are so emotionally rich, who are so incredibly valuable. They have such incredible worth, and it's related to nothing to do with money, but they bring everything to the table with you. And when you're with them, you feel incredible. You just feel incredible because that's what they're bringing. They're bringing the best gifts ever. So anyways, this whole thing around the money has been an interesting factor, because for me, I have an emotional attachment, not to this money, but to the person. There's an emotional tie. There's some dynamics there. And it really, I just kept thinking, you know, for the sake of this, for the sake of that, I'm just going to let this go. But what I was doing was not holding myself to any standard at all. It was okay for me to lose in all ways for them to win. And that's never holding yourself in any value at that point. I wasn't looking at the facts of the situation, that this money was owing, and that it really had nothing to do with anything else other than the fact that the money was owing. And what had transpired around that, take out all of the emotions, and it becomes extremely clear what needs to happen. And it was honestly very fortunate for me. I have incredibly rich, beautiful, valuable friends that really understand how to be my mirror when I need it. Because often we're human, we get caught up in our own stories, we get caught up in our emotional attachments. It doesn't matter how enlightened or aware you are. There are moments you're going to be caught up in the emotional attachment until you really truly learn how to let this all go forever and ever and ever. And then trust me, you're in Buddha state all the time. And you can get there, and I'm working on it. And I've got a ton of awareness and I've got a lot of embodiment, but I get stuck in my stuff sometimes too. So it was a really good friend who said, ho, wait a minute here. This is the fact. This is what's happened. And this is what can be done. And I was like, oh, because I was holding onto the shame of that person's and that their guilt, and letting them put that on me with the things they were saying around that money. And I also had one of my lovely roles. So I said, so very important to understand roles. I had one of my lovely roles, this butting up against it nonstop, that I just want to maintain this relationship. I just want them to, you know, like me. That people pleaser in you. I just want them to like me. I don't want to rock the boat. I just want this to be okay. But that's not okay if it's at the cost of you. There is a cost for this. And there are some moments when you have to go, yes, it's totally worth it to cut this loose. And then cut ties. And then there's other times when you're like, no, it's not just about principle. It's about honoring yourself and about doing what's right. And I mean, I have kids involved in this. So there's complications to the story, but looking at the facts, I'm like, no, this has become abundantly clear what needs to happen. So the emotional attachments we have to things cloud our vision. They cloud our vision. We can't see. And seriously, having that outside perspective was a game changer for me. We had a lengthy conversation. I went through my story, right? I just, frustration and, you know, my own feelings coming up. And it was just that beautiful moment of honesty with love. When we're coming from a space of unconditional love, which we get often in life when we're willing to recognize it, but when we're coming from that space of unconditional love, we have this enormous opportunity to not take offense to what someone's saying and to just hear what they're saying, know that they're doing it out of a space of love and to help you be better. I had a beautiful call with someone this last week, and this was our exact conversation. So it looks like she is about to become a beautiful little client. Love this, because she's just so lovely. And we're so aligned to do work together because I'm picky. I want win-win. I never want to win-lose. Never, never, never. So if you don't align with me, I don't align with you. I will never be the right person for you to work with. But we're having this conversation, and I said, okay, I'm going to be really honest with you. I'm never going to lie to you. I'm not going to hold back. And I'm always going to do this with the intention of you being your best self. Are you okay with that? And she's like, absolutely. She goes, that's all I get from you. That's all I feel from you. I'm like, great, because here it comes.
Yeah.
And I'm not mean about it, but I'll challenge that primitive mind that comes into play and tells you all these things like you're a fraud, or you can't do this, or this woman literally is an MBA. She's got like so many degrees. She's so smart. And I love this because I was like, man, she reminds me of me. It's all about learning, right? The love of learning, the love of knowledge. And I said, knowledge is fantastic if you implement it. And if you're continuously stuck in the cycle of creating, and not getting it out there, what happens? You're suffering and you're stuck in your own loop, right? So she's an entrepreneur. And so we're talking about this, and I said, okay, what do you need to do to get this out? You already know you can build it. I already know you can build it. And you've already got stuff that's ready to go. Stop trying to create 15 more programs. Stop that and get out there and sell this. This is where your joy is. Because we talked about that, and she's like, I don't want to take this job. I don't want to do this. And I won't have time to do what I really love. And she's like super frustrated with where she's at. And I said, okay, well, what are the first steps? Right? What are the first steps? And this is, again, recognizing your own value, holding yourself to higher standards, putting those boundaries sometimes around yourself, and having the supports in place. What would I have done without that support system? I would have continued down my road of it's okay to suffer. It's okay to put myself in harm's way for someone else. And then that means the detriment of me and my kids. Is that okay? No. Why would I do that? I never offer that. I don't give that out to the world. Why would I accept that for myself? Right? Would you do that, James? Would you accept less for yourself than you're willing to give?
Well,
and if so, why?
It's very profound that you've analyzed that as you move through your own time here, on Earth, right? You put time
my own neuroses.
No, you put time into putting into play what you already know and have experienced to understand it better, and so you can help other people. And so you talk about self-worth, worth, boundaries, where to place them, standards, and emotional attachment. And here's my question, which is fascinating, what we talked about. We're moving away from ego to stand in our core value.
Yep.
right? And then we put up boundaries, we place
Boundaries will
them,
come automatically.
standards, and then
Mhm.
we have emotional attachments. So we're dealing with, like, ego can come in quick here.
Yes, absolutely. And the ego is always at play. I'm not kidding. Like it will fight for its identity. It will fight for that. That's how we've existed all this time.
Mm-hmm.
It is a very powerful mechanism in us that needs to be trained. It's like that wild tiger, right? It's that puppy that needs to be trained. So every time these moments come up, and they will come up a lot, we need to learn how to let go and what to let go of. I was thinking I needed to let go of the wrong thing. I needed an outside perspective to allow me to see what I needed to let go of. And what I needed to let go of was my people pleaser. I needed to let go of my role. That was the ego coming in and saying, but you don't want to rock the boat. You just want this to be like this. And I needed to let that go. I was holding on to tightly that part. That's what I needed to let go of. Because once I let go of that, there's no shame and no guilt and no nothing in me doing and asking for what I'm asking for. Nothing. I'm honoring myself. It's an automatic, once we get to know ourselves.
Even in business, right?
Yes.
This is a business in a sense. You're modeling, business transaction.
Absolutely.
And okay, so you went into a negotiation, and you operated in good faith, and the contract has been rolling forward from there, or the agreement's been rolling forward from there.
Yes.
There's been
a breach.
Hold on. There's been imbalance, and now that imbalance is been discovered because of a certain amount of money. And this is a regular kind of thing that goes on in joint ventures, limited partnerships, and this role of being the people pleaser.
Oh my God, does that play out in business?
So you're rolling forward, you're putting together deals, you want the JV to stay together as long as possible. Maybe to get another big contract in, the limited partnership. Maybe have some investments mature one more time, right? And so you're pleasing, but people are backstopping and they're siphoning. And they're doing these
because often there's no boundaries in place. So I have a client right now. She is a wonderful businesswoman, but she struggles with the boundaries. And I will challenge this every single time, that there's a people pleaser come into play, and that there's also a self-worth issue. If you recognize your self-worth, you automatically hold those standards. You articulate those standards. You say, like, this is what I expect because this is what I hold myself to. And you articulate that from the beginning. So with her, she struggled with like not being able to say things in some of these earlier meetings. And now it's causing tons of problems. And I'm like, okay, I already know how we can fix this. Like, out of any of those joint ventures you've had in the past, are any of these people holding themselves to the standard that you do? And she was like, 2 of them. I'm like, okay, so the rest of them dump. You're never going to go back to them. Never, never, never. Now, these 2 you think you can work with, set some rules in place, set some parameters, ask them what they expect. You put those things in place. This is why contracts are so important too, because they really outline what's expected. And without those expectations inside the business or inside the business partnerships, people can say, well, you never said that, or I didn't know I had to do that, or that's not my job, or, there's lots of conflict that can happen, and we can literally solve most of this stuff before you even start. It's like when I was in finance, in the beginning, when I was first learning, I didn't have a process in place. There was a lot of things that I was still feeling my way through. And when I put the process in place, didn't matter who came in my office, didn't matter if they were a $5 million account, didn't matter if they were a $5,000 account, right? Didn't matter. I would start exactly the same way. I would say, I'm going to ask you a lot of questions. The sheet, I fill it out with everyone because it gives me a financial snapshot of where you're at. We'll have a net worth at the end, but I need to know where you're at so I know how and if I can help you. Is that okay with you? Yep. Okay, cool. Then let's proceed. And literally, people would just be like super open then, instead of, being kind of, well, why are you asking me this? And why are you asking me about that? I'm here to help you. That's my job. If I can help you, I will. If I can't, I won't. Right? So if I didn't put those expectations in place before we even sat down, sometimes you would butt up against people going, well, I don't want to share that information with you because they feel guilty or shameful, right? Around where they're at or what they've chosen to do or not chosen to do or whatever. Right? So it's, or there's a pride and a possession thing sometimes around, I don't want to share these details with you. So that alleviated all of that before we even started the meeting. And you come across, so for all you awesome business owners, you come across as a major professional when you set some boundaries.
So
you set some rules.
What did your office look like when you're doing this? Were you above the ground? Were you on a strip mall? Where were you?
So I was in a financial center with other advisors. They were, I'm trying to think, that we were actually one of the largest financial centers in the city. But so I was
downtown?
No, my second location was downtown, but not this one, not the one where I was first starting out and I'm thinking about all this, but it was ground floor. And, I'd meet them at the front, or the receptionist would phone me and say, hey, your client's here. And I would come get them and stuff, because actually they can't walk through the office without you.
Sounds reasonable.
It's part of law. It's part of law. So, but I'm telling you, it made like the world of difference with people's, like, they just know that that's the expectation for the meeting. And they have the choice right then and there, because you've said, this is what I expect. They have the choice right then and there to say, yes, I can meet you there. I can meet you at this level. I can meet you at this standard that you're holding, or not. And if we know ourselves, we can do this in all areas in our life. You can do this in your personal life. You can do this with your kids, and you can do this from a loving way. Like, you don't have to be a jerk in any way to do this. You can be absolutely kind to yourself and those around you by placing these expectations, these rules, these boundaries, but they're out of an understanding of, this is what I expect for myself and this is what I offer. So this is what I expect from you. Can you meet me here? And if you can't, where can you meet me? Because now we can have a dialogue.
And I'll decide whether I want to be there.
Yes.
But don't trick me.
Yes. And you're not tricking them, and they're not tricking you, and there's no games involved, and all the stupid shit is removed.
So where do you hit the ejection button? Like how?
Like if they, very quickly.
Because the deal maker, people pleaser, the people pleaser is the deal maker in business, right?
Right.
Keep making them happy, get the deal, right?
Oh.
So now when the standards are, the standard, once they're talking about doing kinds of business that you're not interested in, and then the kind of boundaries in terms of how they behave, the things that are talked about, in terms of outside of business, what this is about, this process is about, and just, I like that.
Okay, so hang on a second. I have a little bit, because something you just said kind of set something off. So people pleaser comes in, and I'm just going to do everything I can to get the sale, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm the people pleaser. I come in, and all I want to do is just get the sale.
Yeah.
But I can't deliver on it, right?
Or they'll never be happy with what you deliver.
Right, because it's misaligned, and someone in that group knows it. Mm-hmm. Because trust me, when there's a misalignment. Like, you just know when the dynamic isn't right.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not just about the people. So a friend of mine is a change management specialist in the energy sector, and high up. And it's funny because she's talking about one system that's come in and it's been a complete disaster, and it's a massive integration company. So, there's SAP, there's Salesforce CRM, but there's a lot of integration programs out there, and Oracle is one of them, Microsoft is another, and SAP, and then et cetera, et cetera. Mm-hmm. So anyways, it's a big one that's come in and said, we're going to give you all these things and it's so awesome and blah, blah, blah. So they buy into this. and it's not being delivered. The people pleaser salesman, right? The one that will tell you everything. So if you are in the position to be buying, or if you are in the position to be hiring someone, have that contingency laid out at that beginning in that conversation. This is part of your standards. This is part of your rules. This is part of like, if this doesn't work, what do we do? Lay this out right now. Don't be afraid to ask for what holds you in your standards. And it's okay to do this. Mm-hmm. It's not you being anything but real with yourself and honoring yourself. And the more we honor ourselves, and again, this is like not coming from a space of being egotistical or, you know, putting someone else in a position to lose. It's just asking the right questions to really be able to be okay with the decisions you make and know that you're in line with yourself. And if it doesn't work, this is what we're going to do. It's not a big deal. It doesn't have to become this big deal. And it doesn't have to become this ridiculously crazy, emotionally charged event anymore because you laid it all out in the beginning.
But there are emotional attachments in business, right?
Yes, there are, because we don't say things.
Well, and, you know, there's family, you know, or people that, or fraternity or sorority, you know, contacts. There's spiritual communities. Right. There's service groups. Yeah. You know, there's neighborhood, you know, stuff that, you know, all of a sudden someone that, you know, you coach a hockey team, and next thing you know, one of the kids' parents, you're doing business with them, right? There's attachments, right? Yep. So these come into play.
Okay, so tell me, when you go into business with a family member or a friend, what's the first thing you do?
You know, I don't know. I'm you know, people are finding themselves here. You know, a lot of people inherit businesses. They're full of cousins, and you know.
First thing you ever do when you go into business with your friend or your family or anyone really, contract. Lay out the expectations of all parties involved. I cannot repeat this enough times. More times than not, it will end in complete disaster, destruction of the relationship. Like, you lay out the guidelines.
Okay. So contract's done. Now we're free flowing, right? Yep. And we're doing boundaries. We're doing standards. You know,
you're holding yourself to this higher standard.
There has to be,
and them too.
There has to be some honor. I guess that's what you replace emotional attachment with, is honor. You know, I'm not gonna dishonor you by I'm not gonna dishonor you by these business moves. But because you're my neighbor, or your kid plays on my hockey team, or I go to church with you, you know,
But that's all irrelevant. You went into business with this person, so I'm going to honor you because I went into business with you, and that's
whatever. You could be a new client or a customer. Right. You know what I mean? Yes. There's all these things that you know, they say, oh, you know, warm market, leverage your warm market. Okay, now all my customers are my friends and my neighbors and my relatives. Okay, so you know, how much emotional attachment? You know, where you know, I have to, you know. So it's just that kind of, and then ego comes back, right? Because we're, you know.
So who do you have? Who do you have? I say this truly, honestly. Who do you have in your corner when you have questions like this? Who's there to help you through these moments? Because trust me, you actually have the answers in you, but often you're just, again, blindsided by the ego coming into play in some role, in one of your roles. And there are 10 of them that play out significantly, and all of them can play out in better ways and in very destructive ways. So who's there in your corner to kind of bring the light into the situation and say, okay, so this is what I'm seeing. This is the facts.
You know what most people do is they've got about 10 or 15 people that they'll tell the whole story to, and they'll gain a little bit of insight, and then they try to make their decision.
Hang on a second.
I like your insight, you know, having a you know,
outside. And when I say this, we often, and I said this to this woman I was talking to literally 2 days ago. So wonderful. I said this to her. I said, number one rule when it comes to a business idea or business expansion idea or anything to do with your business, big ideas, never talk to people with small minds. And there's lots and lots and lots of people we have in our lives that we love dearly, but they don't have big vision like you do. Do not share your ideas with them, because then it's literally crab in a bucket, and they will tell you every reason why you shouldn't do it, can't do it. You know, Tom, Dick, and Harry tried it and it didn't work. They will be the first to shut you down. They will feed your ego in all the ways that prevent you from actually succeeding. You want to talk to people with big vision, big minds, big open, critical thinkers that can not only see your vision, but can expand on it. There's moments when you have these insights and you're like, I really want this in my business, and I want to do this, or I want to try this. And they will say, that's amazing. I love it. Have you thought even about this? You could even do this. They can expand the idea because they know you've got it in you. They're there with you. So mentors are great for that. Coaches obviously are great for this. But you need someone who's got that completely like outside. Friends and family are attached to you and you have attachments to them. So there's very few friends I can look at and know that I can trust what they're saying. There's very, very few that I hold in that counsel area.
Yeah, not that you don't trust them.
It's not that
look
I don't trust
look
them.
at your house when you're out of town.
It's not that I don't love them.
Yeah.
It's not that I don't think they're great people. It's just I know where they're thinking from. I know what they're bringing to the table at that moment. If I'm going to bring something to them and I need that advice, I need solid advice that has no blinders. I need that. So I know I can't go to like, I can be really honest. I love my parents. They're amazing people, but I can't go to them with most of my ideas.
Yeah.
I love them, but they also hold belief systems that don't align with mine at all. Mm-hmm. They hold on to all these ideas that, you can't do this and you can't do that. And there's a lot of parameters around the way that they think. And again, I love them to death. They're such amazing people. But they're not my counsel. Mm-hmm. They're not my counsel. I'll never go to them for counsel. I'll go to them and share ideas, but I will never take in as like something that I own that counsel. So having someone that can counsel you well and can see it for what it is, can see the facts, like the woman I spoke to, literally, it was really easy for me to go, well, this is what I'm seeing right now. And her going, but, and all the buts, right? These are our stories. This is our primitive mind pulling you back over and over. But, what's holding you back? This should, could, would, but, right? So having that outside is crucial. Being able to set real boundaries, expectations right off the bat, super important. Even if you're taking over the family business and it's been done that way forever, doesn't matter. If you're taking it over and you are the one running it, come to an agreement with what your vision is. If you're the one owning it, right? You're the one who's going to take it over. And dad did it differently, but you have a new vision, own it. Have that conversation with whomever you're taking it over with and set those boundaries in place, set the expectations. These are what I see. This is what I want to do. And if you're coming out, I would love for you to help me when I ask for it or when I need it, but this is where I want to take the company. Wonderful. And then they can say, yes, I totally agree I love what you're thinking about doing with the company, or no, I totally hate that. Well, this is my company now. Or, or maybe that's part of the discussion before the company becomes yours. Mm-hmm. Is, dad's like, no, I don't think that's a good vision at all. I don't want that at all. Well, what do you want? Again, it opens the dialogue. The more we can be honest and stand in conviction with our truth, with our value and what we're bringing. And this is why it's so important to really recognize what you bring to the table. It's not just knowledge. Maybe you're an amazing negotiator. See, I'm a critical thinker, so I'm adaptive. That's one of my best gifts. And I like to call myself the encyclopedia. I constantly am taking in data. I'm always processing information. So I can pivot on the fly. And this brings a lot of value to any business.
Awesome.
See, know your value.
Know your value. Fear it goes.
Figure out your self-worth, baby.
Brandi Taylor on TVU. It was awesome. It was a good one. Thank you.